Aaron Cole was an ordinary human worker who accepted a quiet job on a distant alien world. He did not dream of medals or fame, and he did not expect history to remember his name. He had grown up on crowded stations and tired cities, learning early that steady work mattered more than loud ambition. When the offer arrived, it looked simple and dull, and that was why he chose it. The contract promised long days, low pay, and little attention. For Aaron, that sounded like peace. The planet lay far from trade routes, a pale world with wide skies and slow seasons. Its star was gentle, and its light painted the land in soft colors. The alien village sat near a shallow river, built low to the ground, shaped by customs older than written records. The people there lived careful lives, guided by routines passed down through countless generations. They believed change brought risk and risk brought loss. So they stayed the same. Most visitors never stayed long. Traders found the place boring, scholars found it stubborn, and officials found it unimportant. Reports marked the village as stable and unremarkable. That was enough to make the galaxy look elsewhere. The people of the village accepted this without anger. Being forgotten felt safer than being noticed. Aaron arrived on a small transport with one crate of tools and one bag of clothes. The landing pad was cracked, but no one rushed to fix it. Time moved slowly here. A thin wind carried the smell of water and soil. He stood alone for a moment, feeling the quiet press against him. It was not empty silence, but a calm that listened back. An elder greeted him, short and careful in movement, eyes old with patience. Words were exchanged through a translator that hummed softly. The elder explained the work. Aaron would help maintain records, repair simple machines, and assist where needed. There was no rank, no promise of advancement. When Aaron nodded, the elder seemed surprised. Few humans accepted such terms. The village homes were modest, built with smooth stone and woven panels. Paths curved instead of running straight, following habits set long ago. Aaron noticed how everything fit together, yet nothing improved. Tools were used until they failed completely. Tasks took longer than needed. People waited rather than acted. No one complained. This was how life was. Aaron was given a small room near the edge of the village. It had a bed, a table, and a window that looked toward the fields. At night, unfamiliar stars filled the sky, steady and cold. He unpacked his tools and placed them in neat rows. The order felt comforting. Tomorrow he would begin. On his first day, Aaron was assigned to record crop yields. The process was slow, written by hand on thick sheets. Errors were common, but no one corrected them. When Aaron asked why, the answer was simple. The numbers were only tradition. They had never mattered much. Aaron wrote carefully anyway. As days passed, he observed more than he spoke. He watched workers repeat tasks in the same order, even when that order caused delays. He saw machines left idle because no one had been assigned to move them. He noticed how people waited for permission that never came. None of this was cruel or lazy. It was habit settled deep. At meals, he sat quietly, listening through the soft buzz of translation. Stories were shared about ancestors and seasons, about floods survived and storms endured. There were no stories of invention, no tales of bold change. Survival was the highest goal, and survival meant staying known and safe. Aaron did not judge them. Humans he knew had once lived the same way. His own people had feared change until change forced itself upon them. He remembered lessons from old instructors who said that humans survived not because they were strongest, but because they adapted. He wondered what would happen if adaptation were invited, not forced. Still, he kept his thoughts to himself. He repaired a broken pump using spare parts others had ignored. He organized tools after finishing tasks, even when no one asked him to. When asked why he bothered, he answered simply that it saved time later. The response earned polite nods and quiet looks. Weeks passed. Aaron learned the rhythm of the village. He learned when the river rose and when it fell. He learned which paths flooded first and which tools broke most often. He also learned that no one expected improvement. Life was measured by endurance, not progress. One evening, as the sky dimmed, Aaron sat by the river and wrote notes for himself. He listed small problems and smaller ideas. None of them were grand. None of them would change the world overnight. But together they formed a pattern. A better way of doing things. A gentler future. The elder passed by and paused, watching the human write. There was no suspicion in the gaze, only curiosity. Humans were known for many things, but patience surprised them. Aaron looked up and offered a respectful nod. The elder returned it and moved on. Aaron did not know it yet, but his presence was already a change. Not because he demanded it, but because he showed something different. He worked without complaint. He asked careful questions. He accepted the village as it was without trying to own it. The galaxy would have laughed at the idea that this quiet job mattered. No battles would be fought here. No speeches would be made. But history does not always begin with noise. Sometimes, it begins with a man who simply shows up, ready to work, on a world that forgot how to move forward. Aaron felt the distance from humanity most at night. Messages from home arrived late and brief, filtered through many relays. Friends asked if he was bored, if the aliens were strange, if the job paid enough. He replied with short lines saying he was fine, that the work was simple, that the place was quiet. He did not know how to explain the weight of stillness or how loud habit could be. During the following days he began to notice how people watched him when they thought he was not looking. Not with fear but with interest. Humans were rare here. Stories said they rushed, broke rules and left messes behind. Aaron did none of that. He waited his turn. He fixed what he touched. He returned tools cleaner than he found them. A worker named Lena began to ask him small questions. Why did he stack parts that way? Why did he write notes instead of trusting memory? Why did he check machines before they failed? Aaron answered without pride. He said mistakes cost time and time was life. Lena listened, thinking deeply. The fields benefited first. Aaron suggested marking rows with simple signs. It took an afternoon. Harvest became easier. No one argued with results. The idea spread quietly, passed as a useful trick rather than a change. That made it acceptable. Aaron was careful never to push. He remembered that fear often wore the mask of tradition. Instead of saying something was wrong, he showed how something could be easier. He worked alongside others, never above them. Slowly, the village adjusted without realizing it was adjusting. He felt something unfamiliar growing inside him. Purpose maybe. Not the loud kind but a steady warmth. This place needed nothing dramatic. It needed attention. It needed someone willing to notice. One morning, a minor machine failed near the river. In the past, work would have stopped until an assigned repair time. Aaron fixed it on the spot. Water flowed again. The delay vanished. People exchanged looks. No rules had been broken, yet something felt different. The elder called Aaron later that day. The meeting was calm. Questions were asked. Aaron answered honestly. He said he only wanted to help things work better. The elder studied him for a long time, then said nothing more. Permission was not given, but it was not denied. That silence mattered. Aaron understood it as trust, cautious but real. He returned to his room that night and slept deeply, dreaming of slow rivers and open paths. The village did not celebrate change. It absorbed it. Like soil taking rain, it accepted what fit and ignored what did not. Aaron learned to respect that balance. He adjusted his pace to theirs. In return, they allowed him space to continue. Far away on maps and charts, the village remained a footnote. No signal marked its growth. No alert warned of its future. Yet something had begun. Aaron Cole, the ordinary human worker, rose each day and did his job. He did not know that this was how futures started. With patience. With care. With one person willing to work where no one else wanted to. The quiet world watched and slowly learned that change could arrive without fear today. Aaron slowly began to understand the village in ways others never tried to see. The people were not lazy and they were not foolish. They simply lived as they always had. Time passed, work was done, and life continued without many questions. What Aaron noticed most was how often small problems returned again and again, never fixed, only accepted. Broken tools were placed on shelves and forgotten. People waited days for repairs that could be done in minutes. Work stopped often not because it was hard but because no one planned ahead. Aaron did not complain about this. He believed complaining wasted more time than broken tools ever could. Instead, he acted quietly. When a tool cracked, he repaired it before it failed completely. When parts were missing, he made sure they were kept in one place. When a task repeated every day, he learned the best order to do it. These were small changes, so small that most people did not notice them at first. They only noticed that work felt easier. Mila was the one who truly paid attention. She worked near Aaron often and watched how he moved. He never rushed, but he never stood still either. When others waited, he prepared. When others followed habit, he followed reason. Mila noticed that he finished tasks sooner without working harder. This confused her. The old ways taught that effort mattered more than thought. One day Mila asked him why he checked tools before using them. Aaron answered simply that broken things were easier to fix early. That answer stayed with her. It felt obvious once spoken, yet no one had said it before. Soon Mila began copying small actions. She organized supplies. She planned her work before starting. She checked things instead of assuming they worked. Her tasks became faster and her days felt lighter. Others noticed her change and asked questions. Mila shared what she learned without mentioning Aaron's name. The village slowly shifted, not in rules but in feeling. People spent less time waiting. They talked more while working instead of standing idle. Mistakes still happened, but they caused less trouble. There was no fear in trying something new because nothing bad followed. The sky stayed the same. The land stayed calm. Life did not break. Elders watched from a distance. They did not stop the changes because nothing was being taken away. Tradition still existed. Ceremonies still mattered. Stories were still told. The only difference was that work no longer felt heavy. Aaron never pushed ideas. He answered questions when asked and stayed silent when not. That silence built trust. The villagers felt that the changes belonged to them, not to him. This made all the difference. One evening, work ended early. People stood unsure of what to do with extra time. Some sat by the river. Others talked. Children played longer. Mila realized something important then. Life was not only about surviving the day. It could also be about enjoying it. For the first time, the village questioned whether tradition was always right, or if it was meant to guide, not control. That thought was quiet but powerful. It spread without fear. Aaron returned to his room that night and rested. He did not know how far this change would go. He only knew that thinking had begun, and once thinking began, it never truly stopped. The village slept peacefully, unaware that a new future had already started. Aaron began to notice the results of the changes before anyone spoke about them. The crops stored in the shed stayed fresh longer than they used to. Mold appeared less often and pests became rare. People no longer rushed to use food before it spoiled. This alone eased many quiet worries that had lived in the village for years. With full stores, nights felt calmer and mornings felt lighter. Work also ended earlier. Tasks that once stretched until dusk now finished while the sun was still high. This was not because people worked harder. They worked smarter. They checked tools before starting. They shared jobs instead of repeating them. They planned the day with simple talks at sunrise. The extra time felt strange at first, like a gift that came without warning. Fewer mistakes were made. When mistakes did happen, they were smaller and easier to fix. People spoke up when something did not make sense. Silence no longer ruled the work paths. Questions were asked and answers were shared without fear. Pride slowly gave way to learning. Visitors from nearby settlements noticed the change before the elders did. Traders arrived and found the village calm, organized, and welcoming. Supplies were ready. Records were clear. Delays were rare. The visitors asked how this was possible, since the village had always been known as slow and careful, never efficient. Aaron was often the one they asked because humans were already known for strange ideas. Each time he gave the same answer. He said, "Anyone can do this." He explained that no special skill was needed. Only attention, patience, and the courage to think before acting. Some visitors laughed. Others listened closely. A few stayed longer than planned, watching how work flowed without stress. They noticed how people spoke to each other with respect, how planning replaced guessing, and how shared effort replaced quiet frustration. Mila became a quiet guide for many visitors. She showed them storage methods, simple schedules, and shared tools. She never called them new ideas. She called them helpful habits. This made them easy to accept. The idea of improvement spread faster than anyone expected. Nearby settlements began trying small changes. They did not ask permission from leaders. They simply copied what worked. Tools were checked. Tasks were shared. Planning became normal. Results followed quickly. Back in the village, elders could no longer ignore what was happening. They met often not to stop change but to understand it. They saw fewer injuries, stronger harvests, and happier people. They realized something important. The village was not losing itself. It was becoming stronger. Aaron remained careful. He avoided praise and refused leadership. When thanked, he pointed to others. When asked to decide, he stepped back. This made people trust the process even more. It was not about one human. It was about shared thinking. Children grew up watching adults plan and talk openly. They learned that mistakes were lessons, not shame. Their questions were welcomed, not silenced. Curiosity became normal. The future quietly changed shape. Visitors carried stories back to their homes. They spoke of a village where work felt easy and life felt balanced. They spoke of a human who claimed nothing and taught without teaching. Interest grew. Scholars took notes. Officials asked questions. Still, the village stayed peaceful. No banners were raised. No announcements were made. Change moved like water, steady and unstoppable. Aaron sometimes stood at the edge of the fields watching people work together. He felt pride, not in himself, but in what thinking could do when fear stepped aside. He knew the galaxy would notice soon. The village that once feared change had become proof that improvement did not destroy tradition. It strengthened it. And it all began with simple choices repeated daily by people willing to think together. The elders of the village gathered more often now. They met in the long stone hall near the river, a place once used only for seasonal talks and old stories. The hall had always been quiet, but now it carried careful voices and long pauses. Outside, life continued smoothly. Work ended early. Children played longer. Stores stayed full. Inside, the elders faced a choice they had avoided for generations. For a long time, their people had chosen to remain hidden. They stayed away from large trade routes and avoided attention from powerful worlds. Long ago, contact with the wider galaxy had brought fear and loss. After that time, their ancestors decided safety mattered more than growth. The elders had protected that decision, passing it down as wisdom. But now the world outside the village felt closer than ever. Visitors arrived more often. Messages came from nearby settlements asking for advice. The elders could not deny what they saw. Their people were stronger, calmer, and more united than before. The old fear did not seem to fit the present reality. Aaron was asked to attend one of the meetings. This surprised him. He entered the hall quietly and stood at the edge, hands relaxed, eyes respectful. The elders asked him many questions. Why did humans change so easily? Why did they risk failure? Why did they move forward instead of staying safe? Aaron answered slowly and simply. He said humans learned that staying still could be just as dangerous as moving. He said mistakes were painful, but refusing to learn was worse. He spoke of adaptability not as strength but as survival. Then the elders offered him something unexpected. They asked him to help guide their people if they chose to rejoin the wider galaxy. They spoke of titles, authority, and trust. They believed his presence would ease fear and bring respect from others. Aaron listened, then gently refused. He said power would break what had been built. He said the change belonged to the villagers, not to him. He said humans did not succeed by ruling others but by learning with them. If the village moved forward, it had to do so by its own choice. This answer caused long silence. Mila stood near the back of the hall, listening. Many villagers were allowed to attend now, another quiet change. She felt pride and fear together. The future stood close, closer than ever before. The elders spoke among themselves. Some argued for caution. Some argued for progress. All agreed the decision could not be delayed forever. The galaxy had noticed them already. Hiding would soon become harder. Days passed as the village waited. Aaron returned to his daily work. He refused to act differently. He fixed tools, shared ideas, and listened. He never spoke of the meeting unless asked. This calm behavior reassured many. If the human was not afraid, perhaps the future was not something to fear. The elders finally called for a gathering of the entire village. People filled the open space near the river. The air was quiet, heavy with meaning. Children sat close to their families. Workers stood beside elders. No one shouted. No one rushed. One elder spoke slowly, explaining the past. He spoke of fear, loss, and the long choice to stay hidden. Another elder spoke of the present. She spoke of full stores, safe nights, and peaceful days. She spoke of learning without harm. Then they spoke of the future. The choice was simple in words but heavy in meaning. Stay hidden and safe or step forward and reconnect with the galaxy. Trade, knowledge, and risk would come together. So would opportunity. Aaron was invited to speak, but he declined. Instead, he stood among the villagers, not above them. Mila noticed this and felt something settle inside her. This was how it should be. The elders asked the villagers to choose. No one answered at first. Then a worker spoke. He said life was already different. He said they were no longer weak or afraid. He said hiding now felt like turning away from growth. Another spoke. She said tradition had protected them, but it was not meant to cage them. She said they could carry their values forward instead of leaving them behind. More voices followed. Fear was spoken openly. Hope was spoken softly. The village listened to itself for the first time in its history. At last, the elders spoke again. They said the village would step back into the wider galaxy, slowly and carefully. They would choose their partners. They would set their own pace. They would not abandon their ways, but they would not let fear guide them anymore. The decision passed like a quiet wave. No cheers followed. Only deep breaths. Messages were sent to nearby settlements. Trade requests followed. Invitations arrived. The village prepared, not with panic, but with planning. Aaron helped only when asked. He reviewed systems, checked supplies, and ensured knowledge was shared freely. Officials from other worlds arrived weeks later. They expected confusion, weakness, and dependence. Instead, they found calm organization and confident voices. The elders spoke clearly. The villagers spoke together. No one demanded special treatment. When asked about the human's role, the elders answered honestly. He was a worker. A helper. Nothing more. This confused many outsiders. They expected control, influence, or command. They found none. Humanity's influence was felt without force or command. It existed in habits, in questions, in calm confidence. It existed in the idea that progress did not need domination. Aaron watched as the village signed its first agreements in generations. He felt no pride in being right. He felt pride in watching others stand strong. Some officials asked Aaron if he planned to stay. He answered that his contract was nearly complete. He would leave when the village no longer needed him. Mila heard this and felt sadness but also understanding. His purpose was never to remain. It was to begin. As trade routes opened, the village changed again but gently. New tools arrived. New ideas mixed with old wisdom. The elders guided carefully, refusing excess. Balance remained the goal. Aaron prepared to leave quietly. On his last night, the village gathered, not for ceremony but for shared food and calm talk. There were no speeches. Only gratitude. Mila walked with him to the edge of the village at dawn. She thanked him. He told her she had done more than she knew. They shared a quiet moment, then parted. As Aaron's transport lifted into the sky, the village did not wave wildly. They returned to their work, confident and ready. The future was no longer something to fear. Far beyond this world, news spread. A once-hidden species had returned, not broken or desperate, but steady and thoughtful. Scholars took note. Leaders wondered. Humanity's name appeared in reports, not as rulers or warriors, but as quiet influences. As proof that strength could exist without command. And on one small world by a river, a people stepped forward together, carrying tradition in one hand and the future in the other, ready to shape both with care. Years passed quietly, the way time often does when history is being made without noise. Records were written, trade routes adjusted, and alliances formed, but none of it felt sudden to those who lived through it. To them, the changes had grown slowly, like crops rising from careful soil. When historians later searched for the beginning of the transformation, they did not find a great speech or a single bold act. They found notes about a human worker who arrived, worked, and left. The species that once hid from the galaxy was no longer hidden. Their settlements were known for balance, clear thinking, and calm cooperation. They traded fairly, spoke honestly, and avoided conflict whenever possible. Other worlds began to ask how this had happened. The answer always traced back to one small village by a river and the habits that began there. In academic halls far away, historians studied old reports and simple logs. They noticed a pattern. Before the human arrived, records showed slow decline and deep caution. After his time there, the tone shifted. Language changed from survival to planning, from fear to choice. The rebirth of the species did not come from technology alone. It came from a change in thinking. Aaron Cole's name appeared only a few times in official records. No statues were built for him. No honors were announced across the stars. He returned to human space quietly when his contract ended, carrying the same small bag he had brought with him. To most people, he was just another worker moving on to another job. Back on a human station, Aaron took simple work again. Maintenance, repairs, organization. He never spoke much about the village unless asked. When people did ask, he did not tell stories of glory. He spoke of calm mornings, shared work, and people willing to learn. He said it was one of the best jobs he ever had. He lived a modest life. He ate in common halls, slept in small rooms, and kept his tools clean. He followed the same habits he always had. Fix things early. Think before acting. Listen more than speak. Those around him noticed that working with Aaron made their days easier, though few understood why. Aaron was content. He did not feel the need to return or to lead. He believed his role had been finished the moment the village learned to choose for itself. That knowledge brought him peace. Some humans search for meaning in praise or power. Aaron found his in quiet results. Across the stars, humanity's reputation began to shift. Long known for ambition and speed, humans were now also known for something else. They were seen as problem solvers who did not demand control. As workers who improved systems without forcing change. As beings who asked questions instead of giving orders. This did not happen everywhere. Humans were still human. Mistakes were still made. Conflict still happened. But the story of the village spread, and with it, a new understanding of what humans could be. Alien leaders began requesting human advisors, Not generals or rulers but workers. Engineers. Organizers. Planners. People who could help without taking over. Humans were surprised by this, but many accepted. They carried the same simple habits into new places. The species that once hid became known as mediators. They remembered fear and they remembered growth. They helped others balance tradition and progress. When disputes arose, they spoke calmly, guided by lessons learned long ago in a small village. Mila grew older and became one of the elders herself. She often told young ones about the early days, but she never spoke of Aaron as a hero. She spoke of him as a helper. She taught that the most powerful changes began with respect. Children who grew up after the change found it hard to imagine a time when thinking was feared. To them, planning felt natural. Questions felt safe. Improvement felt normal. The past became a lesson, not a chain. The village by the river remained peaceful. It grew but never too fast. It welcomed visitors but kept its values. Fields stayed healthy. Work stayed shared. Life stayed balanced. The memory of fear faded, replaced by confidence. Historians eventually wrote a simple truth. The rebirth of the species did not begin with contact or technology. It began with a mindset. One human worker helped show that change did not have to destroy. It could build. Aaron lived out his years quietly. He moved from station to station, world to world, always choosing the jobs others ignored. Broken systems. Forgotten places. Slow paths. Wherever he went, things worked a little better after he left. He never saw himself as special. He believed anyone could do what he did. That belief was the heart of his legacy. When Aaron passed away, there was no grand announcement. A few friends shared quiet words. His tools were cleaned and passed on. His name faded from daily talk. But his influence remained, spread across habits, systems, and choices made by others. Across the galaxy, humans were no longer feared in the same way. They were watched closely, yes, but also trusted. They were seen as catalysts. Not the spark that burned everything, but the one that helped things grow. Sometimes, the smallest job changes everything. Not because it is loud, but because it is done with care. That was the quiet legacy Aaron Cole left behind.